How's it going, everybody? So in this video, we're going to be discussing how to actually reach the nirvana of health. So first and foremost, most of y'all who've been following me for a long time already know, what do I mean by the nirvana of health? The nirvana of health is this kind of like finish line, this extremely ambiguous and nebulous health goal that is not clearly defined. It's like the peak of health, like the healthiest and most pristine condition you can get your body and mind and soul into, okay? And it's this health goal that just simply does not exist, number one. And number two, it's a health goal that most people who it's sought after from, typically these are people who suffer from real orthorexic tendencies or orthorexia, which is simply an unhealthy obsession with health that counterproductively and paradoxically moves them farther and farther away from the condition of health in which they aspire to achieve. So bear with me on this video, and I'll apologize in advance. I may not be politically correct, and I may not be filtered in a professional sense. So if you are bothered by sensitive language and maybe condescending undertones to a certain degree, then you probably shouldn't watch this video. But this is a very serious issue, and it's mostly seen in the YouTube communities quite commonly, okay? People who are like really, really obsessed and like spend every waking hour that they can researching health. But anyway, we're going to talk about how to actually reach that goal. Okay, so first of all, most people, when they get into health and nutrition stuff, and the baseline level of health that you need to reach, the foundation, is making sure your blood markers are on check, okay? So first of all, if you have any tangible symptoms of disease, okay? If you have diabetes, symptoms of diabetes, and I mean that you can actually check on a continuous blood glucose monitor. People who have orthorexia, they will typically have unidentified health symptoms, like disease symptoms, like feeling like they're going to pass out or something, and they'll self-diagnose themselves with blood sugar problems. And they might go to a doctor and be cleared for diabetes, but still insist that they have blood sugar issues. If you cannot detect like noticeable dips and hypoglycemia on a continuous blood glucose monitor, you do not have blood sugar issues. You do not, especially not things that you can notice. So ruling out blood sugar issues is important. Blood pressure, okay? And I mean chronically elevated blood pressure. So in a lot of cases, blood pressure is not necessarily indicative of an issue. Things like caffeine, different levels of hydration and mineral balance. What else? Extreme stress and obviously cigarette smoking. These things can definitely negatively influence blood pressure. And so you have to make sure that your blood pressure issues are a chronic, long-lasting thing by measuring multiple times in a row, like in a week, over a course of a long period of time, to average out your blood pressure levels and make sure that they're actually a chronic issue. So blood sugar, blood pressure, and things like that, HDL levels, and just, primary tests that you can actually tangibly measure. So people typically will get into a real problem and they'll stay stuck in health deficits and health issues that they're self-imposing on themselves when they have gotten all these checks done, but they're still convinced that they have a problem when the tests show that they do not, okay? The placebo and the nocebo effect are very, very powerful. So yeah, and then of course we have getting body fat and waist circumference into a healthy range and stuff like that. So those are things that most people should focus on if they're just starting or if they think they have a health problem. So then beyond that, we have autoimmune illness and digestive illness. So digestive illness are things like Crohn's disease, colitis, irritable bowel syndrome, etc. So digestive illnesses are usually caused by foods that you're eating that your intestine is having a hard time processing, or just in general, you're having a hard time digesting. And I'm confident in saying this because I've seen thousands and thousands of documented case reports over the years. Not just in the scientific literature, that's not on the thousands, that would be in the dozens that are actually published, but other doctors, interviews with patients and releasing, case reports and lab tests and things, but also real people's experiences. In person, I've had clients where we've easily solved their digestive issues when they simply replaced a lot of the harder to digest fibrous foods that for whatever reason their individual body wasn't able to digest with foods that are that work better for them, right? So one really common example is, and this happened to me too. People have, like colitis, where they're literally having blood spilling out the other end, and extreme pain and just really bad. Where doctors are telling them, "Hey, we're gonna like remove your intestine. That's the treatment we're gonna do to, solve your colitis or your Crohn's disease." And so they're like, "Well, surgery is the only other option. Remove the intestine." So they go on an elimination diet, and they usually find beans, whole grains, nuts and seeds, and roughage. Okay, roughage, highly fibrous foods that most people think are really healthy. They remove those carbohydrate sources and they replace it with bananas, berries, oranges, and fruits, and they find that their intestinal issues go away. Okay. And of course, you have dogmatic people who have orthorexic tendencies, who might have success by removing those whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds. But then they go way off the deep end, and they're like, "Oh my God, freaking grains are bad for us. Plants don't want to be eaten, and they're poisonous." And then they start to go on this orthorexic Nirvana of health kind of thing where they're dogmatic about food and not seeing things within the realistic context in which it is actually happening. Instead of understanding, well, shoot, like, there's a percentage of the population that seem to have trouble digesting these foods, maybe because of, antibiotic use in the past or something else, right? But whatever, it's a specific problem. But no, they're like, "Oh my God, those are just bad for us, and we need to eat this like carnivore diet or this raw vegan diet or this fruit and meat diet," and it's like they go way off the deep end. But then, of course, so beyond that, so it's specific to the individual. It's not something where we want to like overgeneralize and just think this is the healthiest diet, this is the way humans need to eat. Even though it, maybe that's true, maybe, right? Who knows, right? So then, of course, we have autoimmune illness. So autoimmune illness as well. This is something that when you first look at autoimmune illness, you think it might be a genetic predisposition. You think it might be, sometimes viral infections can trigger these things. Or you might start to go and think that it's just like some kind of external circumstance that, it depends on what it is. People think lupus, because it has different symptoms that are being presented, has a completely different underlying cause or trigger than something like fibromyalgia compared to, what's another autoimmune illness, that people, like psoriasis or whatever. And people just like, they wrongfully assume because it's a different diagnosis, right, that it's a different condition altogether. But what you'll typically find, again, and this is based on the case reports and how people in the real world actually resolve their symptoms of these diseases, is it's usually some kind of food intolerance. Their body's actually creating these antibodies, and there's a lot of intermittent steps along the way, but they're creating these antibodies as a byproduct of some kind of food that their body is having trouble digesting. Or assimilating to some degree, or there's certain or not chemicals, but like compounds, like the actual what chemical actually means. There are certain compounds in some foods that, for example, in nightshade vegetables, we have solanine and capsicum. These are, solanine I think is actually an amino acid because of the anine, but alkaloid compounds in nightshade vegetables that can create a inflammatory response. Okay, and inflammation is another one of those buzzwords that most people have no clue what it actually means, and they just use it as a general term to describe any kind of swelling or pain or anything that they think is remotely negative, right? Like, oh my God, whatever. I didn't sleep in 5 days. Now my eyes are puffing. It's inflammation. Like, no, it's just puffy eyes from not sleeping. Like, okay. Anyway, yeah. So like, solanine and capsicum are examples of compounds in plant and certain foods that can trigger arthritis, like rheumatoid arthritis, like the severe stuff that are commonly seen as autoimmune conditions, very commonly triggered by nightshades due to those chemical compounds. And there's a variety of compounds, and this is why you have these dogmatic carnivore people who go on and on about plants want to kill you, oxalates in spinach, which is a serious problem, by the way. Eating raw spinach smoothies, taking these super green powders, it's like, good freaking luck to your kidneys. Like, I will pray for your kidney health, my guy and girl. But anyway, not to say that oxalates are like deadly, but there's a lot of people who have had some pretty bad issues with them. And it's pretty commonly accepted now in mainstream nutrition that oxalates are a problem, even among vegan nutritionists and dietetic students. All right, so where are we going with this? So these compounds are real, and they can trigger autoimmune symptoms in a subset of the population, okay? So these things we've already mentioned, metabolic markers diagnosed via blood tests, continuous blood glucose monitor, hemoglobin A1C, HDL, lipoprotein in the blood, okay? Blood pressure, etc., fasting insulin. These can all kind of diagnose things like insulin resistance, diabetes, and then of course indicators of heart disease are, in alignment with this kind of diagnostic, but that would be things like not even just coronary artery calcium. That's not good enough, but that's okay to a certain degree. There are other things like symptoms of angina combined. Angina is the primary symptom of heart disease, a leading indicator that's not always present before a heart attack. If you have angina, you should go and then, of course, get x-rays and then a radioactive, there's like a radioactive thing that they can shoot you with or whatever and detect plaque in the arteries. That can also detect soft plaque, which is important. I don't remember what that's called. But anyway, yeah, so those tests, if you got those out of the way, and then you're at a healthy body fat percentage, naturally, of course, steroids can kind of mask certain negative things and whatever. So yeah, so then, of course, then you have symptoms of issues like, digestive illness, autoimmune illness, etc. And after you got all those things taken care of, like those are the fundamentals. Those are the real health issues. You know, now there's another side of things. And this is where you can this is where you can focus on seeking the nirvana of health. However, seeking is actually not the term to be used. So we're going to talk about how to actually get that. So let me drink my coffee first. I'm actually going to be hitting up some jiu-jitsu open mat in about an hour. So let's see. All right. That's why I'm wearing my rash guard. Yeah. So a lot of people focus way too much on their health. So we've kind of touched a little bit already, but like a lot of people are already healthy metabolically. They've conquered their autoimmune illness and their digestive illness, right? And then they start to look towards vitamin supplements. You know, they hear like they need methylated B vitamins. They hear they need vitamin D. They hear they need fish oil, which I think fish oil has been shown pretty solidly to be a great kind of pharmaceutical intervention for boosting mood and other things as well. I think 2 grams of EPA per day is actually a good thing to do. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Again, dogmatic people, they see mechanistic studies on lipid peroxidation and how fish oil can be oxidized and this and that. And then they try to like say it's not good for you and blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's not what the research shows, and they're misunderstanding fish oil. They're like, yeah, you can get all the omega-3s you need from your diet. You know, it's like, yeah, that's true, but fish oil's benefits seem to be more like a tonic, like a pharmaceutical drug almost. You take it, and it has an add-on effect that boosts your baseline higher, mostly in regards to mood and energy and sleep and all sorts of other things. It's not like necessarily an essential thing, and this is where a lot of people kind of get it. So anyway, the nirvana of health is where people, they try to optimize things and use nutrition, use supplements and other things as like a pharmaceutical drug instead of to fulfill their baseline needs. So at a baseline, humans in general, so you could already reach all your baseline essential nutrients given by the government's RDI guidelines, which are absolutely not even real, right? Like the minimum essential nutrients per day is based on a diet of processed foods. The only reason you need to reach all your recommended daily intakes is to make sure that your diet of white rice only, or whatever, your diet that's mostly wheat and, you know, pizza and stuff, which is actually the primary sources of calories. We know this through NHANES data. To make sure that your processed food diet is not setting you up for deficiency syndromes. We never saw symptoms of nutrient deficiencies until berry. When we started refining white rice, we got vitamin B2 deficiency syndromes, even fatty acid deficiencies. We never saw omega-3 deficiency until, except for in feeding tube studies, where in a hospital intervention, they were feeding people like this Soylent Green solution through a tube because they lost their stomach or something, so they were being fed through a feeding tube, and they were being fed a completely artificial food formula. So it was like soy protein isolate, soybean oil, and like a cocktail of vitamins and minerals to keep this person alive. They developed extreme inflammatory symptoms and neurological issues from omega-3 deficiency because they were being fed a completely artificial formula. And so only under that condition did they find omega-3 deficiency, right? And so I'm just saying that this is where the recommended daily intake and nutrient deficiency kind of thing came into creation. So that's the only time that you should ever freaking consume added vitamins, especially, and other things you think are essential nutrients, is when you have a diagnosed deficiency from your doctor has been confirmed via blood test. But most people, they're taking vitamins, especially B vitamin cocktails, multivitamins, as like a pharmaceutical drug, and then they say an insurance policy. If you're not eating white rice, white flour, and stuff like that, and you're not following like a vegan diet, okay, then you probably don't need to supplement, okay? And if you're doing like a low-carb diet, you're probably going to need magnesium and potassium and a lot more salt. And that's about it. So yeah. So Nirvana of health people, they take these cocktails of vitamins and minerals. So, and this a lot of times goes hand in hand with, symptoms that they think are indicative of disease. So, for example, I had extreme panic disorder. I had depersonalization. I had all sorts of like really mysterious health issues back in like 2012 up until 2015. And I tried everything. I tried all sorts of supplements, and I still continued even after I solved my issue. People are always trying to optimize things, okay? They're trying these super green powders and all this stuff, okay? So I'll tell you this. The way to solve this issue, so another thing is like I've had, so there's people out there that will solve their digestive issues by removing the extremely fibrous foods that are causing them. And it's not like all vegetables need to be removed. It's just for you. Usually it's like chia seeds, it's like walnuts, it's like almonds, some kind of like brown rice protein powder, something crazy like that. And so when I have people remove those foods, like we identify it, we have them track their food for a couple weeks, and I'm like, well, you have extreme diarrhea 2 hours after your morning, kale and almond smoothie. That's the problem. Remove the kale and almonds, and then just see if it helps. It's a trial and error thing. But for me, it's like, okay, I see the obvious most likely causes, or remove those for a while. They remove them, they feel better. But something that I notice happens, and I'll get comments sometimes from people that are like, oh, I feel like you're talking about me. I'm not talking about anyone specific. This is a general thing that happens in a lot of people that I've seen over the years that I've been helping people. So a lot of times I will find the problem I'll find the trigger to people's problem. I'll be like, yo, you're having extreme stomach cramps 1 hour after consuming that bean soup that you eat. Stop eating the beans for a couple weeks, or for 4 days, and see what happens, and then try adding it back in. Without fail, they remove the bean soup or the almonds or whatever it is, the chia seeds. They feel way better, have no symptoms at the very least for like 4 days. But then the obsession kicks in. They're like, they'll add it back in, and they'll have those problems. And they'll be like, all right, well, there's your issue. And then for whatever reason, it's like the idea of the beans. They're infatuated with it. They're like, well, I need the fiber and the short-chain fatty acids. Freaking Dr. Gundry told me so. It's like, whoa. You just legitimately, in your reality, in your experience, have found the cause of your problem, or at least a trigger. Maybe there's like something underlying that. But it's like, how much easier it'll be to be healthy if you just remove that thing that is clearly triggering your issue. But they're like attached to it's the idea of a health goal that doesn't exist. They're like, my life and my health will be godlike if I can eat those beans and consume those arbitrary nebulous nutrients that freaking Dr. Michael Greger, vegan extraordinaire, in his book How Not to Die, told me I need. If I'm not consuming freaking Dr. Michael Greger's Daily Dozen, like blueberries and almonds and whatever that he says are superfoods, if I can't consume that raw green smoothie, if I can't get those broccoli sprouts, freaking Dr. Rhonda Patrick, that is my interpretation, my impersonation of freaking Rhonda Patrick. Broccoli sprouts, glucoraphanin, isothiocyanate. If you can, broccoli sprouts, everyone. If I can't consume those freaking superfoods, then I'm going to be average like everyone else or whatever. Like, I can't reach the promised land. I can't reach Nirvana. That's the mentality people do. And it's like, and the thing is, why I'm so passionate and vocal about this, and maybe a little condescending, I apologize, but the thing is, I've been there before. And the thing is, I saw how the cognitive dissonance, where it's like I'm reading all these Chinese medicine texts from thousands of years ago, and I'm reading about the lore and the long mystical history of black rice, royal rice as it's known, eaten by the kings of Asia and stuff like that, or whatever, the rulers, right? And I'm like trying to force myself to eat these foods, and it's like I sprout them, I soak them, I do everything that I can. I pulverize it into a congee mush, and I can't digest it for the life of me. And I try enzyme supplements, probiotics. I spend way too much money, thousands of dollars a month. More money on supplements than I do food. And yet, I still can't digest these whole grains, even these like prestigious purple, red, and black rices that have these anthocyanins or whatever, like these isocyanates, these like polyphenol compounds that are supposed to have magical properties. No matter what I try, all the money I spend, probiotics and all this other crap that they're trying to sell us, I can't digest this food. And I have extreme irritable bowel syndrome, psoriasis, can't breathe because my stomach is so full, my intestine is so bloated with these undigested foods that I'm trying to force myself to eat. God bless my damn soul, right? Rest in peace, colon. Rest in peace, salad shooter hole, which is exactly what happens. What is the point? What is the point? To reach the nirvana of health, I've got to spend all this money on freaking supplements that literally have no real measurable benefits, right? It's just all of this like, it's mental masturbation is the word that people use that's highly accurate. The infatuation with ideas of what I think health is supposed to be. On paper, it's like, like these freaking population studies show, people who eat the most anthocyanins and polyphenols and this and that, they have like the lowest rates of cancer and blah, blah, blah. Then when you really understand how to interpret research, you're like, wait a second, that's relative risk amongst hundreds of thousands of people that are just eating a healthy diet overall, eating cups of these like polyphenol-rich plant foods. And you're like, wait a second, in the real population, who are the ones who are eating all of these plant foods, okay? And this is not a knock against plant foods. The point is, even when you understand how to interpret the science, you realize these compounds, it's not even that huge of like a thing that screams magic. It's not as huge. It's not the magnitude of effect of these polyphenols are not nearly as high on a broad scale as we were led to think. And so there's this huge disconnect between the reality of health versus what people see in their heads, okay? And so this really clicked for me when I did the carnivore experiment. And again, this plant foods are not bad. That is also part of this Nirvana of health syndrome, where people are like, freaking plant foods are deadly because I solved my autoimmune illness by removing broccoli. It's like, no, it's not quite that. That's a little too far, right? But anyway, what I realized is when I did my carnivore experiment, and I felt better than I've ever felt before, just eating meat, cheese, whey protein, butter, and coconut oil. As crazy as it sounds to a lot of people, that's all I ate. No tonic herbs even. And no vitamins or minerals. I wasn't even supplementing salt or electrolytes at that point. And what happened to me? A month went by, my strength on all my lists went up, I felt amazing, my sleep was extremely deep and refreshing. I was like, bro, I had unlimited energy, okay? And this is a common experience for a lot of people, and there's people out there who are living for over a decade on meat alone, okay? There's also people who eat only potatoes, which is interesting and can survive on that as well. So that showed me, and then I saw all these other people are doing the same thing. That showed me, well, we don't actually need vegetables, fiber, carbohydrates, recommended daily intake of vitamin C and all these other things. Or like there's more to this. And a lot of what we think about health is wrong. A lot of it is just speculation, and it's ideas and hypotheses that are seen as valid. But in the real world, what's actually contributing to my health? And that was 2018. November 2018 is when I started that. And it was 2019 where I started to focus on what mattered, okay? And you'll see the same kind of thing. An overcomplication to the point where we're literally living our lives based on ideas and fantasies instead of what actually matters. Instead of the 20% of actual practices that yield us 80% of health results, we focus on the 80% of crazy gimmicks. We need vitamins, and we need vitamin supplements. We need freaking a full spectrum of essential fatty acid supplement, flaxseed oil, fucking black seed oil. We need turmeric supplements. We need turmeric and black pepper in all of our meals. Ginger shots in the morning, freaking apple cider vinegar. I need my goddamn kale smoothie, my athletic greens. $100 a month? Fuck out of here. What the fuck? You know what I'm saying? We need all these crazy shit. We need there's some other things that legitimately people have no clue if it's adding a benefit. I see this all the time. What are some other ones that people take? I can't even think of it. That there's herbs and supplements and vitamins that people take, and you'll ask them, well, what have you experienced? And they're like, well, I haven't really experienced anything, but it's seen as just a general health thing, so I figure I may not notice it, but it's subtle in the background, and it's doing magical things. And it's like, that's probably not true. It's probably a waste of money, and it might actually be hurting you. And we've seen the evidence where there's a pretty significant increase in, for example, lung cancer in people that supplement beta-carotene, which is the vegetable form of vitamin A, the plant form of vitamin A. It's not even vitamin A, but the same thing goes for, I think, vitamin E supplementation and other antioxidants as well. We actually see an increased risk of disease and death among people who supplement antioxidant supplements. And the same thing goes for polyphenol supplements. And there's all sorts of justification for that. They're like, well, it wasn't the right dose or whatever. The fact is there are more simpler things, like more obvious things that go on in healthy people that get healthy results, and it has nothing to do with the crazy things people think about. If you watch all these super centenarians who live over 100 years old, even people live over 90 years old with no medical interventions and drugs and they never got these diseases. A lot of them, like 9 out of 10 of them, never even thought about extreme health things. And if they tell you what they think contributes to their longevity, I've heard a lot of people say egg yolks, eat the whole egg, 2 or 3 a day, which is, compared to a lot of these people think egg yolks are so healthy. They're like, I eat a whole dozen a day. Extremist, right? I eat like 40 grams or I don't know how much that is, but like 40 grams of raw steak a day or something weird like that. And there's a couple that are like, I eat my fruits and vegetables every day, or I stay away from meat. But those are very, very slim. There's one guy, he's like a World War II veteran. Don't quote me on that. I don't know. But he was like, I don't remember, 150, what was his name? 115, his name was like Mr. Oswald or something. Please don't quote me. I don't remember his name. But most people probably know what I'm talking about. Smoking cigars. He would wake up in the middle of the night and drink coffee. Okay? He says he loves ice cream and soup and fish. Like, those are real quotes from him. You know what I mean? Very, very, very simple stuff. Okay? And this guy is all happy and living peacefully. You can totally tell from his demeanor. And he's great. And you'll see that common theme. People smoking and etc. It's the exception and not the norm. Look, don't start smoking to become healthy. I'm just saying there's something else. I can't stand it when we see clear contradictions to our dogma and thoughts about what is healthy. We see clear contradictions, but then we're like, that's the exception, or it's a placebo effect, or, whatever it is. Like, for example, Lane Norton and these mainstream nutrition people, these evidence-based people, who see that there's people out there that are insisting that like removing plants removing plants, let's just say, completely resolve their freaking autoimmune illness. And they're like, oh, it's placebo or whatever it is, or they're lying. It's like, really? Really? They're lying? Really? Placebo effect? I don't know, man. Like, bleeding out of my asshole from like Crohn's disease, going from that to all of a sudden like having a completely healthy gut and not bleeding out of my asshole, a placebo effect? And you're not trying to capitalize on that, on the power of the mind? Which, coincidentally, these are also people who usually say law of attraction and the power of belief is like stupid. And, they're completely peddlers of zealotry and dogma themselves and contradicting themselves. But I'm just saying, like, that's funny, right? It's actually not. It's disturbing because a lot of people suffer from it. So, yeah. Geez, I went way off the rails with this one. But look, I'm not telling people to go out there and eat the same diet that guy ate that lived to 100. Like smoke cigars, drink alcohol, drink coffee in the middle of the night. What I'm saying is, look, you have people out there that are freaking out because they only get 5 hours of sleep. And freaking out because they think they have adrenal fatigue. Adrenal fatigue. Because I drink some coffee in the fucking morning, which I'm chugging coffee right now. Oh, I'm so scared. Whoa. No. Because if I expect this coffee to make me have anxiety, that's what's going to happen. I know people out there who are scared of drinking Diet Coke because they found out Diet Coke still has like 15 milligrams of caffeine in it. Or wait, sorry, not Diet Coke, decaffeinated coffee. And because they realize, it has like 5 milligrams of caffeine. It still has caffeine. And they're scared of it because they identify as sensitive to caffeine. And then it's funny. Well, it's not funny, but it's amusing. They'll drink decaffeinated coffee, and they're like, oh, just a little bit won't hurt. And then they have an anxiety attack afterwards. I dated a girl who this happened to, and I see this all the time. And I did it, and it happened to me too for a while when I did my no caffeine experiments. And I'm like, really, you're that sensitive to the caffeine to where the decaffeinated coffee is legitimately decaf gives you a complete anxiety attack. Are you sure it's the caffeine? And so many people are so obsessed over this. So they're like, yes, it will. You got to read the book Caffeine Blues, or what are the other ones? I've read a lot of no caffeine books. But look, my point is, like, we are obsessing over minutia, right? People will skip completely over, is my diet mostly whole foods? Do I have good sleep hygiene? Am I doing strength training? There's people out there that think muscles is like not a sign of health. And they're doing raw vegan diets and freaking yoga and throwing out their back. They have like their hair's falling out. They're losing their period. Those are the extreme of the orthorexia. You know, and then they're like, well, it's vegan detox. I'm detoxing. That's why I have these weird crystals coming out of my eyes, and you know, I don't. It's not even. I have no muscle mass and no fat mass, and I literally look like I'm dying. But it's detox, they'll say, and those are the really bad ones who you can tell like they need professional medical help. But anyway, right? We're focusing on things like dry fasting and like all this other stuff, and it's like, just eat normally for a while, base your diet on whole foods, hopefully animal foods, remove the foods that are triggering your intolerances, and if you're overweight or you have symptoms of diabetes or whatever, work with the real doctor. Not I don't even want to go down this route because whatever, work with the damn doctor who's testing the basic stuff that we know is related to health problems. All right. Make sure you don't have diabetes, whatever. Resolve that. Get to a healthy body weight. Base your diet on animal protein. Remove the foods that are triggering negative symptoms. I don't ever have stomach problems, but I eat mostly meat and fruit and tonic herbs. And don't worry about super green food. If you're supplementing athletic greens, but you can't afford to eat 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight from whole meat or whatever, like, yeah, meat's too expensive, brah. I'm just gonna like focus on my antioxidants. You know, you're spending all like $6 for a pound of organic power greens, and you can't even afford meat. It's like, you know, and then you don't have energy throughout the day because you're not eating enough calories and protein and things that actually matter. So yeah, and then of course there's, you know, I haven't even explained how to actually get into Nirvana health. This is all the traps people get into. People are like, oh, I can't. If I lift weights more than 3 times a week, I'm overtraining. Get out of here. I squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press to a max every day. I do jujitsu every single day. And I still am able to maintain a pretty active job and record videos and be on my top game. And people out there like, you know, they're trying to cut. They're trying to cut. They're already like in a healthy body fat percentage. They're like a male who's like 15% body fat. And they're trying to cut calories and shit. And they're like, they have chronic anxiety, sleep issues. They think they're overtraining and stuff. Like, no, you're under eating calories. You have some sort of like unhealthy obsession with food and stuff. And then they'll go into all these weird things like super spiritual mantras and crazy stuff, you know, to try to heal from some kind of like whatever. And it's like, bro, you just are not, you're not focusing on the basic shit that actually matters. You're caught up in like fantasy land, right? Geez, I just spent this whole time ranting. Look, I'm going to make another video where I talk about what actually matters. This is all the shit that doesn't matter I kind of ranted about. But there are things like eat meat, seriously. And if you're a man, even if you're a female, I would say everyone should do an experiment where they eat 2 pounds of meat a day. Okay, preferably beef, whether it's lean or fatty, whatever. And on top of that, eat fruit and eat enough fruit to eat 500 calories more than your basic metabolic rate. Because a lot of people are under eating. Okay? If you're watching this video and you're like, I feel all anxious and weird and crazy, that's what you need to do. You're probably under eating. Okay? 2 pounds of meat. Try to eat, I don't even know, man, like 300 grams of carbs from fruit. Let's put it that way, from whole fruit. Remove all your supplements unless diagnosed by a doctor. Okay? How about that? And supplement a minimum of 1 teaspoon of salt per day. Okay? But a lot of people probably need more than that, way more than that. But a lot of people are under eating salt. And that's a huge issue for people. Get at least a whole teaspoon of regular plain salt. Doesn't matter what kind, as long as it's sodium salt per day. And spread that throughout the day. But preferably try to get 2 to 3 teaspoons if you really dedicate. Most people are scared of salt. Like, I can't do it. Spherage, these carnivore dogma people, they're like, it's a rock. You're not supposed to eat salt. And they're all like dizzy and low energy and shit and cramping up. It's like, bro, eat the salt. Seriously. No, I gotta eat but I'll do all this other crazy shit. Crazy supplements and all this other crap. I can't spend $2 a pound on freaking salt and just, oh no, I might have a heart attack. Get the fuck out of here with that crazy shit, man. Years and years go by and people, either they get worse and worse or they do not even they never solve their health problems. Meanwhile, you got Wolfgang over here up on YouTube or whatever, who's like not profiting from any of this shit, who's been there, done that with all of these fucking gimmicks and bullshit. And I found the crap that's actually hurting people and how to fucking solve it. Like, don't gotta spend any money at all on extra supplements. Just focus on eating enough protein from animal foods, a little bit of fruit, and salt. And then you can start to try to add foods back in your diet to see what's actually triggering your real symptoms. Do some strength training and cardio. And focus on optimism and read Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within. Develop good friendships, a career. Join jiu-jitsu. Get your finances on check. And people are like, no, I gotta get the athletic greens and inflammation and fucking turmeric shots and, black seed oil and fucking B vitamins. I got the hair mineral analysis, Genetic testing that hasn't been scientifically verified to find the diet that's right for me. I'm a special snowflake, everyone. I gotta find bro, or sister, or whatever. Seriously. It's like, I don't know, man. All right, hopefully this has helped. I'm about to pass out. I'm gonna go to jiu-jitsu here in a bit. When I rant like this and then I realize I didn't really get my point out that I wanted to talk about originally, I'm like, so I'm just going to post this. So let me know what you guys think down below. I'm going to make a video where I go into detail on what actually fucking helps and works. But yeah, this is it. Talk to y'all next time.